Ooh, all right. So, in case you missed it, Apple this morning unveiled the iPhone 16e. And in this video, let's talk about some of the key elements you need to understand before purchasing this phone and why you may want to consider picking up the iPhone 16 instead, or maybe a used iPhone. So, for starters, let's go over the quick highlights. For starters, well, I said for starters twice. Sorry about that, but carrying on. It's an OLED display, which is quite amazing. This is like the first budget entry-level iPhone to feature an OLED display, because the SE for the longest time, it was using an LCD. So this is kind of cool to see this. In addition to that, it no longer has the Touch ID home button. It's dead. Apple officially killed it. So now you have the notch. Face ID hardware, not bad. It's not the latest dynamic island, but nonetheless, still is great than Touch ID. It's much quicker, more responsive, and if you're unconscious, somebody can just simply unlock your device by putting your thumb over the Touch ID, you know. Face ID, you need to visually look at the phone to unlock. So I guess that's one of the key elements right there when deciding between the 16, because the iPhone 16 will have the dynamic island, so you can take advantage of all those amazing animations, where the 16e is using a notch. Now, the brightness levels, although they're both an OLED, on Apple's website, it's actually specified to only reach up to 800 nits of brightness. A little bit less brightness than the standard 1000 nits that we've seen on other smartphones. But with HDR, it could go up to 1200 nits. But when you compare it against the iPhone 16 as an example, it's the typical standard of 1000 nits. And then with HDR at peak, 1600 nits. But outdoors, it can easily achieve 2000 nits, significantly brighter than the 16e. And those nits, extra nits of brightness, it's extremely important, especially when you're viewing your phone outdoors on a bright sunny day. So that's definitely something you have to keep in mind. Now, the camera system is completely different on this. There's no dual sensor on the iPhone 16e, unlike there is on the iPhone 16. Because on the rear, on the 16e, yes, it's a big, massive, nice spec'd out 48 megapixel camera. It's a wide angle lens, but it's lacking the ultra wide angle lens. And the ultra definitely does come in handy if you ever own an iPhone with an ultra wide. So if you're upgrading from an iPhone 10 or another dual camera sensor, you may miss having that extra ultra wide lens. It's just something to definitely keep in mind. Meanwhile, the iPhone 16 actually has both a wide angle lens and an ultra wide. And then when it comes to video recording, the 16e does not support cinematic mode. It also doesn't support action mode if you're spraying and recording. It doesn't have that smooth stabilization, nor does it support spatial video recording if you're trying to capture something for virtual reality, you know. These are the features that's only available on the iPhone 16. And now, performance and hardware. So, new this time for the 16e is that this is the first iPhone that is using Apple's modular hardware, or is it modem? I think it's modem. I'll put the correction right there on the title of the screen, or correct me in the comment section. But the 16 is using a Qualcomm 5G chip. This one's using the 16e, is the first generation of the C1, which is Apple's in-house, which is why this has a much better battery life, up to 26 hours versus I believe it's like 22 for the 16. Using in-house chips allow this phone to be much more efficient than the iPhone 16. So I think that's kind of cool. But regardless, both of these two phones are powered by the A18 chipset, which is really powerful, very modern, able to do modern day games, mobile games and stuff like that, no problem. Just however, the 16e is using one less GPU core. But even with one less core, I really don't think there'll be a significant noticeable gaming performance decrease compared to the iPhone 16. Oh, I'm sorry, it is modem. So yeah, like I was saying earlier, thanks to ChatGPT, it's correct me. The iPhone 16e does introduce Apple's first in-house C1 modem. Yeah, that supports up to 6 gigahertz 5G, while the 16 uses the Qualcomm modem with both sub 6 gigahertz and millimeter 5G support. So there we go. So thank you, ChatGPT, for that quick clarification. But additional features you need to definitely keep in mind is there's no MagSafe on the 16e like there is on the iPhone 16. In other words, this may be a deal breaker to some or not. If you have MagSafe accessories like I do, you can always just pick up like these like third-party cases with the mag ring to help line everything up and make your MagSafe devices charge your iPhone. So not much of a deal breaker that is right around that area, just it does charge a little bit slower since it doesn't have a MagSafe, as it's able to accept up to 7.5 watts of charging versus the 16 Pro, I believe, could charge from 15 to like 25 watts. Now, the camera control. The 16e actually does have a action button, very similar to like today's latest modern day iPhones, even like the 16 Pro as an example. But according to Apple Arena, it does not, however, control the camera controls like the 16 Pros. So something definitely interesting I want to get my hands on, but that's another reason why it might be better. You might be better off just spending the extra $200 and getting the 16 instead of the 16e, as it doesn't work the same. I think that this action button is just there for your action button shortcuts, as well as the Apple Intelligence visual, where you can scan objects around the room and it will utilize Apple Intelligence, because the 16e does indeed support Apple Intelligence, which is not so intelligent at the time making this video. Still needs work, Apple. But regardless, it's future proof, as both the 16 and the 16e can easily run Apple Intelligence, and the 16e does have a cool animation around the notch. And then lastly, as I previously stated, $600 for the 16e. The budget entry-level iPhone is $600. Not $599, that's just marketing BS. $600 is the price you're paying. $200 more, you get the iPhone 16, which has more color choices to choose from. And although they both have a back glass, again, because it's only available in both a white and black, there's no product red or anything like that like we've seen in the past with the cheaper budget version iPhone SEs. So in short summary, the iPhone 16e definitely does provide the consumer a more affordable option to have a latest and greatest iPhone and be supported from Apple for another 5 or more years. But while the iPhone 16 still exists, it does offer more features, more enhanced compatibilities in terms of like a better display, nice brighter screen, and a better camera, and better visuals, because the screen with the dynamic island is more optimized for the dynamic island than it is with the dynamic notch, as there's no like live activity support for like quick notifications to see if your AirPods are connected and such. So those are my 2 cents on everything you need to know about the 16e against the 16, if you're just looking for a new iPhone. So until I get my hands on it, as the time I make this video, you might be better off buying a refurbished unit from Apple. You still have the manufacturer warranty, and you could probably extend it with Apple Care as well if you're trying to save money. So personally, I will still stick with the iPhone 16. But if you're a high schooler, you're just trying to get started. So with all that information, which phone are you going to go ahead and get and pre-order? Because pre-orders will start on the 21st, and this will be fully released. Let me check. So pre-orders will start at 5 a.m. on the 21st Pacific Time Central, and will become available on the 28th, which is next week, Friday. So it's pretty soon, actually. And before I forget to mention this, yes, it will support satellite connectivity. So if you don't have receptions, you should still be able to look, and so long as you have sight of the sky, you should be able to send messages to send rescue. And I'm sure it will also be supported to be used on T-Mobile Starlink partnership that they have rolling out right now in the beta stage. I actually have been enrolled, which I'm kind of excited to test out. So I'm sure this phone will be fully compatible for that as well. Let me know in the comments, again, which one are you going to go ahead and end up getting? Or what's your thoughts about this new budget entry iPhone 16e? I'm really curious to see what everybody else has to say about this phone. Thank you so much for watching.